Hello, welcome to Minchinhampton Primary Academy. We're here today on our Green Day at the end of our Eco Week. The children all week have been enjoying nature. Pretty much we see that as the precursor to any work on the eco curriculum, children getting out there, naming, identifying, enjoying nature. So this whole week has been devoted to that. And here we are on Green Day, everyone dressed up in green, bringing in upcycled objects that they've created at home and having a lovely day in the sunshine, as I said, enjoying nature. We are, I suppose, 3 weeks into this. We've been at it for longer, as many people have, of course, across the country, but this is an exciting moment because this is a launch of the Ministry of Education, Eco Education's curriculum, and the only way is up. This is going to inform a lot of what we do in the classroom. It's going to be a very rich thread running through our curriculum, and we hope will inspire the children and help them to make the world a better place.
I have a Year 2 class, so we've been starting to think about Andy Goldsworthy. It's an artist they haven't heard of before, so it's brand new this morning. And we were thinking about patterns because at their age, they perhaps don't know the names of some of the patterns. So we thought actually we need to give them the vocabulary so that they can then go away and use the terminology when they're making their own, hopefully, Andy Goldsworthy inspired patterns later on. Yeah. So today was just a bit about thinking about the vocabulary, looking really carefully at nature, observing, starting to get a feel for the kind of materials that they might be able to use in their artwork.
The difference as well then is you could do this in the classroom and you could, you had the images, you could have shown them on the board, but instead you do it in a setting like this and then you encourage them to what's the reason then to do that? What's the benefit?
I think for all children, for everybody, not just for the small children, but for me it's the sensory element of it. I think they need to be outside, they need to really feel it as well as seeing it. They need to understand what it is that they're working with, not just as an artist, but also just as a person. I think it's really important that they get to know the environment that they're in, and they get to really not just know it by sight, but know it by touch, know it by smell. That's really important for young children.
What was interesting as well is that you start to see some of the group dynamics when you bring it out of the classroom, that there's those external factors that they then have to negotiate, and you can start to see that. I think that in the classroom, where that can be quite a staged environment, as soon as you break that down and bring them to somewhere else, they have to deal with other things that they wouldn't necessarily have to in the classroom.
They do, and the dynamic changes completely. In the classroom, it's often much more forced, I always feel, and actually you bring them outside and there's just something in them, they relax. Everything about them just sort of relaxes and they just have fun. They really enjoy it, they love it. And when we come back into the classroom, they're different then. For the rest of the day, they're different. And we try to spend as much time outdoors as possible, for that reason. One of the things I've had to learn myself is that actually it doesn't necessarily matter if they're coming out and they're taking in that one thing that you wanted them to take in. What matters is that they're enjoying the space, they're enjoying the area, they're relaxing, they're coming to terms with where they are as well as what they're doing. That's what matters, and as you say, they come away learning something. And sometimes they'll bring completely random comments in from other lessons that they've had, and they've made links. And part of what we do here is we encourage them to make links. So one of our children today, she was standing there talking about blackbirds, and it was this kind of the female blackbird is browner than the male blackbird. That's how we know, and all of this. Well, she remembers that from 2 years ago, coming outside and doing something like this, and she's seen it again and again and
something
again.
Something has prompted her
outside,
to remember that.
And it's kind of just made her remember. It's flicked a little switch in her brain, whatever it is. And I think being outside has this enormous power to give children, those opportunities to make links. So,
it's just all about directing them that I can feel the wind on my face.
That's really
and I can feel the sun on my face. So it is, as you say, it is connecting with nature and being in nature. And it's just being out in nature, whatever the weather. And then we can talk about the weather. Is the weather usual or is the weather unusual? Which is the start of talking about weather with small children. We sometimes do our maths while we're outside. So we've done activities where they find 10 sticks and then compare them in height. Then they put them together with someone else's 10 sticks and then they've got 20 sticks. So we do some of our outdoor learning with the other subjects in mind, and sometimes our outdoor learning is just pure outdoor learning, where we use nature you know, to learn about the world around us, basically.
And you can see though in them themselves that this is really comfortable. And
Yes, yeah, they are used to being out. I mean, a lot of these children, they live, so they spend a lot of time on the common, but not all of them do. So, you know, there are some children that have found it hard to lay down on the ground, but they will get used to it. And in the winter, when they've got their waterproofs on, we do lots of things. How can we keep warm? So we teach them to jump up and down. We teach them to put their hands under their armpits. We teach them, you know, we wear our glove and we wear our hat. So we're out in the winter. How can we keep warm? So that starts another whole conversation about different things.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
So for the past 3 weeks, Year 3-4 have been using Rob McFarlane's Lost Spells and Lost Words, which was beautifully illustrated by Jackie Morris. And they've been looking at all the endangered species that we have living in our country, and they've been creating their own spells to bring these species back to life. So you've got children that have created spells for magpies, spells for adders, owls, geese. What else? We've got dormice, we've got rabbits, squirrels. So they've basically, for the past 3 weeks, been creating these spells, lots of performing, a little bit chaotic, but beautiful. Because we're so lucky with everything we've got here, but it's taking them out into it. They were surprised to find that we've got adders here. They couldn't believe it. They were like, we've got snakes. And we've decided we're probably going to do lost spells every term because there's ones linked to seasons. So we're doing autumn, so then we can do some ones in spring. And we've really heavily focused on animals because we knew that would be the hook for the children. What we'd like to do next is then look at, say, there's loads of spells about trees. There's lots of spells about even just a leaf. So that's our next step. Like I said, you know, Birmingham, it's the first time they've done it. 7 to 9 year olds, they've actually blown us away with the language that they've come up with, and also like the sensitivity of it all. Some of them have got really choked up listening to some of the spells. So there's a lot of emotion behind it as well.
That's what I always find so unnatural about the classroom environment, especially when you expect children to sit there for so long and to sit quietly. It's a completely unrealistic expectation, you know, of even us as well.
Hello, my adorable, fuzzy, spiky friend, edging into extinction, dozing through the winter's blue, gradually waking up in the warm breeze, eating slugs, snails, and snakes' tails. Over the undergrowth in copse and spinney. Got to protect you from harm!
Where have you been picking the berries from?
What have we been doing? We've been dyeing some material, haven't we?
Is it bunting you're making?
Bunting. So this is the nurture group.
Yeah.
And we do all day outdoors.
Okay.
2 days a week.
What's the focus in the sense that all of the activities are quite practical?
Yeah. Our focus is, it's all about well-being. It's about resilience. So it's going from their interests. It's building up from what they want to do, mostly. Some days we do activities. But I have about 20 things
up
in
your
my
sleeve.
head.
Yeah.
But I always go with what they want to do. They've really gone for blackberries this week. We made blackberry pancakes on Monday. So we always have a cooking element to our day. Building them from the inside out. Because I'm always the great believer that you can teach anything outside, and we should be outside. You know, you've got to get in touch with nature, and that's what, you know, there's nothing better. And you can see these children thriving. They always thrive outdoors. I think they're learning, you know, the freedom they have outdoors to learn for themselves is, you know, you can't replicate that in a classroom.
I think lots of people have this perception that in a challenging environment you can't think about this, it doesn't work, but it does. You know, if you want it to work,
we're all human at the end of the day, aren't we? And when, you know, once you're outdoors, then you connect to the earth, then, you know, automatically that calmness comes.
So we've still got such a fixed idea of what it means to be successful in some sort of academic sense, and it's completely detrimental to society as a whole, because then you get people who then are perceived to be failures because they haven't succeeded within the narrow confines of what we've got.
That's it.
But also those skills as well, you know, there's other skills that we need.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're lacking. You know, he's trying to, you see what he's doing there, you know, he's only got 2 hammers because we're doing some, you know, we were printing with leaves onto stuff, but now, you know, they're cooperating, they're negotiating.
But think about the motor skills as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people sat on a computer. The idea that you'd pick up a hammer and start doing, well, that's like a foreign idea. And,
exactly.
But again, that's something they need to start. One of the big problems in society is that we manage too much of the risk. So we put people in, wrap them in cotton wool and all those sorts of things, that we need to get back to the idea that we ourselves take responsibility for risk and manage that. And,
absolutely.
And I know there's a fine line. Obviously, we don't want people to go and do things that then put themselves in big danger.
But I think if they're taught from a young age to do that, to manage their risk, to take some ownership of their risk and not always rely on something external telling them they shouldn't. The sooner we do that, the better. But the, you know, the project that we're doing is just, I mean, that's amazing that, you know, getting all those schools to even think a bit differently. You've got your work cut out, I think. You know, they've got to take an interest in it, and it's got to come from inside, no matter what they're doing.
But that's also how the longevity comes for it, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you light that fire
that's right.
by making them ask the questions now, it stays with them.
That's right. She's just there in her own space. It's important sometimes. I try and pull them in like at points as well, because
because like I say, I need some direction. So we do go, come back, go, come back. And I've been this morning. We've been quite strict. Our boundary's been really tight. At times, we've had a couple more challenging children. It's nearly dry. Wow.
And they're probably because I put it over there that reflects to the sun.
Shall we see what this looks like on you?
Is it dry?
Wow. What are you going to do with it?
Daddy, can I try on it?
He wants to make it into a
like a big long handkerchief. So kind of,
big long.
What's it called?
A tabard type thing.
You need to find something to tie around his waist, and then you could.
Well, yeah. So this it sort of ties in with geography immediately, but also, I suppose, biology, but particularly our science, where we're looking at materials this term. But the start of it is the children. We gave them the task of doing an audit of all the living things that are out here on the school grounds, all the plants, all the trees that are out here. It was a real challenge for us to go around, and every time we found something, we had name labels, and we put a name label on it so that we could share that knowledge, trying to name as much as possible, really to try and measure how biodiverse our school grounds are. And then we gave the children the challenge to do some research into different local species of wildflowers and things like that they could introduce to our school grounds in a design to try and increase biodiversity. And we've been working on it. It's been very purposeful this week, and they've been largely independent. We gave them that task, that challenge, and they've been away, you know, using the things that we've given them, but doing it by themselves. Arthur, did you want to say something?
So you got a map, or you were given a map? What kind of map was it? Did you know?
It was a map of the school.
So super zoomed in, a map of the school. And then on top of that, what did you do on top of it?
Just notes. We did notes of where the plants were.
Okay, so you drew on it, did you? Where? And then sort of labelled bits? Oh, perfect. So
In our group, we just did like page 1 and page 2, and then
But then we
Yeah.
did like a fact page
Yeah.
about it.
So did you also keep a tally as well?
no.
No, you didn't. Or count? Did you count how many?
We did a count.
Yeah.
We
did
did
count.
that, yeah.
Like,
So-
unless we did ×5 or
Have you got an idea of how biodiverse it is? How many different plants and animals you found?
well, if you counted all.
If you counted them all up. Okay. But I guess in general, did you think it was quite diverse?
No,
Not really. Okay.
not until.
So you're saying when you did this, you realised that there was more than you thought there was?
Yeah.
Okay. But do you think it could be even better?
Yes.
Okay.
And
How long do you think it will take for these trees for this tree to become like that tree?
50 years.
Yeah.
The idea was we'd plant them so that when they came back as adults, they'd see people resting under the shadow of the trees that they planted. But immediately we discovered that they were under great threat from the children themselves, who you know, run into them, squash them, pull them up.
Pull the leaves off, yeah.
All of that. So it's been a real challenge trying to protect them. And one of the challenges we're going to work on using the children's designs is if they plant these wildflower areas, how are we going to protect them? And what materials are we going to use? Materials that can be practical but also sustainable.
Basically, you could have like flowers over there with bamboo poles, and to make sure people don't like break them down, you could have like nettles around the edges.
You're lucky that there isn't lots and lots of tarmac. Some schools, this would all be covered in tarmac.
Yeah.
So can you think of anything else that's growing out there on the common that you would put in here? Annabelle?
Dandelions,
Okay, what else? Izzy?
daisies,
Yeah. Lucy?
Duke of Burgundy.
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? Some of them are quite rare. And some of those orchids you talked about that you said were behind there, it would be good to get more of those spread throughout our grounds, I think.
Like 7 in a patch.
Yeah. And you thought about things like bluebells, didn't you?
I've got an idea of how we could protect the saplings, so we could dig up some of the nettles on the mounds over there and replant them near the saplings, so people will automatically steer away from trying to destroy the saplings and they'll go to the mounds and sunbathe there.
Who would you need to influence? Who would you need to speak to?
Mr. Moss.
The man walking over. But what are the barriers for Mr. Moss to stop?
My mother has 3 bird feeders in her garden, constantly fills it 2 or 3 times a day, and her garden is just run amok with birds, like full of birds all the time. It's amazing. She has quite a wild area, wild land beyond her garden, which helps. But so do we. We've got the common, haven't we?
Hey, you guys, I just wanted to say well done, you guys, because you spoke so brilliantly then, and you've worked so brilliantly all week. So well done, and thank you. And go and put that in the bin. Very good.